Well, thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be. Whew! 2 down, 9 to go. All right, got following knocked out. Time for Memento. This one should be interesting. Swear to God, if one person asks me where the next Saw review is in the comment section, I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. All right, anyway, where were we? So Memento tells the story of a man hunting down his wife's killer with no ability to make short-term memories. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my Christopher Nolan review series. If you missed my first review of his first film, Following, definitely check that out. But we are at Memento, his second film, and it's a film that it took me a long time to actually go back and watch this one. I watched this after the Batman movie started coming out, and I was like, I gotta see what the rest of this dude's filmography looked like. And it's an interesting movie. It's definitely gonna be interesting to talk about. But as always, guys, please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this review and you want to check out more. If you want to be part of my Patreon team, which is the best and easiest way to support this channel, check down in the video description below for that link. And as always, thank you all for watching. Now let's talk about Memento. So this was Christopher Nolan's first studio-based film, first film that he had actually a good-sized budget for. Stars Guy Pearce in a role that definitely is one of the more memorable roles for me for that guy. He's a very underrated actor. You don't see him a whole lot, but when I do think of him, I usually think of Leonard Shelby. It's just one of those roles that sticks out to me. And it's an interesting movie because it takes this mind-bending aspect of how to tell a very simple story where you have the end of the film and you have the beginning of the film, and they tell them in like 10-15 minute increments to where you start off at the end, then it shows the very beginning, and it just backs its way towards the middle for the entirety of the film until those two storylines cross, and your ending, your reveal, your revelation is actually the middle of the story and how things progressed towards the end of the film. It's very different, very unique, and it's done extremely well. And that is my first positive, and really the main thing that anybody should praise about Memento is how Christopher Nolan was able to take that storyline and make it so compelling because of the way that he told it. Like, if you told this movie in linear format to where you start at the beginning and go to the end, there would be some interesting things about it as far as the exploration of this disability, of this memory loss, but it's a movie that nobody would remember. It's a movie that nobody would talk about. You'd walk out and go, all right, whatever. But because it's told in that non-linear, very unique way that I have not seen anybody replicate, or at least replicate successfully as the way that Nolan has done it, that it takes a simple story that would otherwise be kind of mute and makes it very compelling, interesting, and engaging.
Since my injury, I can't make new memories. Everything fades. If we talk for too long, I'll forget how we started. Next time I see you, I'm not gonna remember this conversation.
Moving beyond that, I gotta praise pretty much all of the acting in this movie is great. You've got Guy Pearce, like I've already said, very underrated dude. He doesn't lead movies very often. This is one of the few times. He's usually a character actor or a villain or a side character, but he's always good, whether the movie he's in is good or not. You have Joe Pantoliano, who has and always will be one of my favorite character actors. I feel like any movie I've ever seen that dude in, he does nothing but make it better. I mean, Guido the Killer Pimp, he's awesome. Their relationship, their dynamic is kind of the main relationship throughout the movie, to where you as a viewer don't quite know how to view that relationship for the most part.
Teddy, don't believe his lies.
You wander around playing detective. Well, maybe you should start investigating yourself.
Because of that non-linear storytelling, because of that unreliable narrator that Guy Pearce is, to where you don't even know whether you can trust his facts that he has written down or not, but it's a relationship where you feel like they're friends, you feel like they're partners, and then the very next scene you almost feel like maybe one is trying to screw over the other, or there's something missing there. That's kind of the main mystery of the film if you know how it starts off. I'm going to try to keep it spoiler free because even though it's an old film, I feel like a lot of people should watch it, and a lot of you probably haven't. Joel Pantoliano and Guy Pearce, they're kind of the heart of the movie for me. Then you have Carrie-Anne Moss, who's playing this side character who just kind of pops in here and there, more so in the middle of the storyline, and she's very good. This was obviously very early in her career. This is pre-Matrix, pre-Trinity Carrie-Anne Moss, and she has a couple different shades to her character that shows that she's a very good actress, to where she's kind of a little bit sexy and promiscuous to a certain degree, but not like in a full-blown flamboyant way, just in a way where there's something alluring about her. She's like that bartender that you would want to stay and talk to a little bit more. Then there's the side of her to where she's a little bit dangerous and she's scheming, and you're like, what the hell is this woman into? Then all of a sudden it seems like there's a nice little budding romance there for a little bit that I'll talk more on. But she's got a nice, well-rounded performance in a character that is just a small piece of the story, but she's given a lot to do. And I also think that Christopher Nolan does a good job at exploring the themes that he's going for in this, as far as the power of memory and, you know, the power of love and the meaning of life, and, you know, does life has purpose because you give it purpose, or does it have purpose because it's life and you should just be grateful that you're here and, you know, move on past the things of the past. It asks a lot of interesting questions regarding how you or how somebody should value life. And though it has some very grim answers throughout the film, it's an interesting exploration of that question. And, you know, Nolan's one of those guys who's not only been very successful in whatever form of storytelling and whatever way he wants to kind of break the mold to tell movies in a new way, but he's also always been very successful at exploring themes. You know, some of my favorite movies of his filmography have very specific themes about them that he's, you know, very rich throughout his script and his movie. Those themes are explored. This is one of them. Moving on to the mixed aspects, I was talking about the Carrie-Anne Moss character. There's a certain point in this movie where it's kind of suggested that maybe they slept together. Whether or not they slept together in the sense that they had sex or they just slept together as in they both fell asleep in the same bed is up for debate. But they certainly spent the night together, and especially following the scene that comes before it or after it, the way that they tell the story, it just doesn't flow for me. Like when you get into this and you get the heart of what this character of Leonard Shelby is, to where every time somebody asks him, what's the last thing you remember? My wife. My wife, my wife, my wife, my wife. That's the whole purpose of living. I gotta avenge my wife. I gotta kill this guy who killed and raped my wife. I gotta avenge my wife. I wanna remember my wife, my wife, my wife, my wife. It doesn't make sense to me that he would entertain even being around Carrie-Anne Moss's character for more than 15 minutes at a time. Even if, you know, with this short-term memory, every 15 minutes he just kind of snaps in. He's just like, oh, I'm in a chick's bed. And then 15 minutes later, oh, she's asleep now. It feels like he would have left. I don't know. There's a couple of points in this movie where he just nods off and falls asleep, so maybe it doesn't quite work that way, but I just don't buy into the fact that his character is so fixated on his love and his memory of his wife that he would even for a second entertain being in that kind of a situation with another woman, especially a woman that he literally just met and just has a picture with her name on it and nothing else. Not, hey, you've been dating this chick for 10 years. Nothing.
What's the last thing that you do remember?
My wife.
That's sweet.
Dying.
And my only negative with this movie, which to be fair is not a knock on the movie itself, it's more so just with my experience with it, it's not the most rewatchable movie in the world. When I first watched it, I thought it was brilliant. When I brought it home and showed it to my dad, I thought it was brilliant. I was excited for him to see it. And it's probably a movie where if I'm showing it to somebody who's never seen it, I'll enjoy it a lot more just to see their reaction and kind of have that discussion with them afterwards. But like, I just rewatched it half an hour ago by myself, and it's the 4th or 5th time that I've watched it. After the first couple of viewings, you've kind of uncovered all there is to uncover with this movie, and it's kind of a frustrating rewatch with the way that everything is structured if you know how things come together. So it's one of those movies that I feel like is made to have an impact on you in your first or your second or, you know, your first 3 viewings. It doesn't necessarily have the best shelf life in the world. But with all that being said, guys, this is truly where you can see that Christopher Nolan was going to be a force to be reckoned with as far as a filmmaker and a storyteller, and obviously history has shown that he was definitely a force and still remains to be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, this guy is like an event every single time. It doesn't have to show you anything about the movie. Christopher Nolan film, Untitled. Woo! I'm there. Bought my tickets. Memento is great. It's a really interesting exploration of how to tell a very simple story in a very non-linear way, a very non-conventional way that makes it interesting, that makes it compelling. Very good performances, does very well with staying within his budget and doing whatever he can to let the story tell itself without having a lot of bells and whistles. Very simple, very grounded stuff. And it's just a movie that, while it doesn't have the best shelf life in the world, it's not going to be my most rewatched or even over time probably my favorite Christopher Nolan film. It's certainly a staple for his filmography, and it's certainly a movie that I will remember for what it does with the storytelling aspects of the filmmaking. So if you guys are Christopher Nolan fans and have not checked out his first studio film, this is certainly one that you must check out. Definitely don't have any distractions, don't have any cell phones on. Watch this from start to finish and experience it the way that it was meant to be. And while you may not rewatch it thousands of times, it's certainly a movie that merits being on your shelf. So go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of Memento? Do you love this film? Is this your favorite Christopher Nolan movie? Was this your first venture into Nolanism and you've kind of gone on with his career since then? Or were you like me and had to go back and kind of just like discover his early career? And let me know your thoughts on this film down below in the comments section. And am I the only one where it doesn't feel like the rewatch value is very high with this one? I don't know if I'm on an island with that one or not. Let me know down below. As always, guys, please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this and want to stick around for the rest of my Nolan review series leading up to Tenet. Check out the link to my Patreon page down below if you want to support the channel. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.